Hello and welcome to another episode of Baughcuts. My name, of course, is Mr. Boff, and in today's episode, we're going to be looking at Imtiaz Dharker's poem Tissue. Remember, these Baughcuts episodes follow the same structure, title analysis, and then we look in depth, but at only 3 key quotations from the beginning, middle, and end of the poem. Really, what we're doing with these episodes is replicating the structure of your essays in the actual exam. Let's get into the title. The title Tissue in Imtiaz Dharker's poem is deliberately polysemous, encapsulating multiple layers of meaning that actually resonate throughout the poem. On a literal level, tissue refers to delicate paper, such as that found perhaps in religious texts or personal documents, highlighting how something seemingly insubstantial can hold profound significance. This paper, though fragile, carries the weight of human history and emotion, suggesting that vulnerability does not preclude strength. Metaphorically, though, tissue extends to human skin and also the ephemeral nature of life and human activity. Just as tissue paper can be, quote, thinned by age or touching, human skin bears the marks of time and experience. This parallel between paper, tissue paper, and human tissue and skin underscores the poem's exploration of the transient and yet impactful nature of existence. In addition to this, the title also invites contemplation of the structures we build, and I'm thinking of both physical and societal structures, but also their susceptibility and indeed their vulnerability to change. By likening buildings and maps to tissue, Dharker emphasizes the idea that even our most apparently solid constructs are impermanent, subject to the forces of time and nature. So in essence then, the title tissue serves as a kind of multifaceted symbol, prompting us as readers to reflect on the delicate balance between strength and fragility, permanence and transience in both the physical and human realms. Now we're going to move over to a series of quotations, 3 quotations from the poem Tissue, and we're going to start with that really key early line. Quote, paper that lets the light shine through. This is what could alter things. Now these opening lines introduce paper as a powerful but a delicate, fragile entity or object. Paper that lets the light shine through suggests thin paper, perhaps translucent paper, like a holy page or a fragile parchment, through which light, which is often itself a metaphor for truth, divinity, or hope, can pass. The idea that it, quote, lets the light shine through implies transparency and illumination. These are traits of openness and truth. This is what could alter things is a very striking claim. It proposes that something as soft and seemingly insignificant as translucent paper has the potential to affect change, to alter things. This immediately presents the poem's central conceit: fragility, as represented by paper, versus power. The suggestion is that the power isn't in brute strength, but in transparency and knowledge, symbolized in the poem through the references to light. Thematically, this aligns with ideas of knowledge, religion, and human insight. So, for example, religious texts or important documents are on paper, and they let the light through in both a literal and a metaphorical sense. Dharker may be hinting at the Quran, which he references later, or other holy books, which of course are on paper and guide people's lives, thus altering things. Or she could be getting us to think about any written ideas that enlighten. This line also touches on the crucial concept of transience versus permanence. Paper is not lasting, but through it, light, symbolizing perhaps the eternal or the profound, shines, hinting that the value is in the light and not the medium itself. It sets a contemplative, hopeful tone at the beginning. Maybe if structures like our society, our maps, our buildings were more like paper that let the light through, things could change for the better. There's a gentle irony in elevating paper such a humble material to world-altering status. Dharker is beginning to build a kind of argument that there is strength in fragility and impermanence. So from the start, she challenges traditional notions of power, like the idea of stone or concrete being particularly strong. Instead, the poem will celebrate the soft, the transparent, the yielding as possessing a different kind of strength. This quote, therefore, encapsulates the poem's message in embryonic form. Light, a symbol of truth or divinity, and paper, symbol of recording, human recording and fragility, those two equal change. The line invites the reader to consider that maybe it's through openness and lightness, like tissue paper, that we can mend or alter our world, rather than through force and apparent solidity. Okay, next quote. If buildings were paper, I might feel their drift, see how easily they fall away on a sigh. In these lines, Dharker invites us into an imaginative scenario. What if the solid structures of our world, like buildings, were as fragile and transient as paper? If buildings were paper introduces this hypothetical condition, and I might feel their drift suggests that if those rigid buildings were light like paper, we could sense them move or float. Drift gives an image of something not anchored strongly. It can be carried away by wind or a breath. See how easily they fall away on a sigh completes the thought. Even a gentle breath, a sigh, could cause those paper buildings to crumble or blow away. This imagery powerfully conveys the idea of the impermanence of human constructs. Buildings typically symbolize strength, permanence, and human achievement. Think of skyscrapers or large monuments. By turning them into paper, Dharker is emphasizing how ephemeral, how transient and short-lasting man-made or human-made power structures really are, or at least suggesting they should be viewed with a degree of humility. If a mere sigh, perhaps metaphorically the breath of time or nature, can make them fall, then our concrete confidence is a rather hubristic illusion. The tone here is both whimsical but also kind of pointed. It's as if she's gently criticizing how we put far too much stock in material or political power, represented by buildings, maps, things like the reference to credit cards and so on, as paper slips, receipts. The sigh could also be interpreted emotionally, a human sigh of relief or sorrow, making oppressive structures fall away, which hints at a longing for freedom from such weighty constructs. Thematically, this quote reflects a conflict between human power and the greater forces of time and nature. It's also about fragility and change. Making the enduring fragile means they could change, move, and not harm us with their rigidity. Dharker is possibly saying that if our institutions, banks, capitals, borders were more flexible or transparent, that is, paper-like, then maybe human life would be freer and less weighed down by those structures. They could even disappear with just a breath. The line then has a dreamlike quality but carries quite a sharp critique. Our huge creations are not as solid as we might like to think. It underscores the poem's message that nothing is meant to last forever. And maybe in that, there's beauty and there's truth. As parts of the extended metaphor, it challenges the reader to see the value in letting things be permeable and not overly fixated, because clinging to solidity is an illusion. In short, it encapsulates the poem's exploration of transience versus permanence and suggests that ephemerality, represented symbolically by paper, holds a sort of wisdom that change and falling away can be natural and actually liberating rather than purely feeling like a loss. Okay, final quotation. Paper smoothed and stroked and thinned to be transparent, turned into your skin. These lines conclude the poem, merging the imagery of paper directly now with human skin. Throughout the poem, Dharker mentions various forms of paper, pages of books, maps, receipts, drawings, and so on. And here in the final lines, she connects it directly to human life. Paper smoothed and stroked and thinned to be transparent evokes a sense of paper that has been worn by touch, maybe an old letter or a much read page that through handling has become thin and almost see-through. The verbs smoothed and stroked are gentle, indicating care and affection, perhaps how one might lovingly handle important documents or cherished papers. There's also a resonance of how time and attention can erode paper softly, or how tracing paper is made thin. This tenderness links to the care one might give to a loved one or to holy texts, and this conveys a sense of reverence. And then, turned into your skin is a metaphorical transformation that suggests the boundary between paper and person has somehow dissolved. Your skin directly addresses either the reader or, perhaps, humanity in general. By saying the paper is turned into your skin, the poet implies then that we ourselves as humans are like tissue. We're fragile, we're transparent, and we are temporary. It also suggests that our stories, our histories, all written on paper, become part of us, that the line between recorded humanity, in paper, and flesh and blood humanity, skin, is very thin indeed. Thematically, then, this is about human mortality and fragility. Just as paper is not meant to last forever and can be easily damaged, so too our skin. Our bodies are delicate and impermanent things. It also implies a oneness. The paper that bore stories or plans is now akin to human life, possibly hinting at the notion that we are stories. We are sometimes known as the storytelling or the narrative animal. The transparency connects to the earlier motif of light shining through. Maybe it's now suggesting that when paper becomes skin, it's like saying we should let light shine through us, be honest, open, allow truth to permeate our lives. The gentle verbs suggest that this transformation is natural, it's tender, it's not something violent. On a philosophical level, turned into your skin can be interpreted as a call for human empathy and unity. If the divisions, papers, maps, buildings, were more like skin, flexible, alive, and connected, we might recognize our common shared humanity. These final words root the abstract ideas of the poem directly into the personal and the physical. The poem, which began talking about paper-altering things, ends by equating paper with the human condition. It leaves the reader with a thought that our lives, tissue and skin, are as ephemeral as paper, and in that ephemerality lies the understanding that nothing material truly lasts, only the light, perhaps spirit or legacy, that shines through it. It beautifully concludes the extended metaphor, reinforcing the message that there is profound strength and significance in accepting or embracing our fragile, impermanent natures, because in the end, that fragility is what we all share as people. The tone then is gentle, intimate, and somewhat enigmatic, inviting the reader to ponder the connections between the delicate and the powerful.